Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Grad Chat from PhD Balance, where we talk about topics of grad school beyond academic research and that may be more difficult to talk about in our day to day. I'm your host, Faye Lin, and I'm a PhD candidate in biochemistry at UCLA. If you like what you see here, check out the PhD Balance YouTube channel for more grad chats, and don't forget to subscribe for notifications about when we go live. And our topic today is making STEM accessible for underrepresented scientists. And I'm excited to welcome our two guests, the co-founders of Cientifico Latino, Dr. Robert Fernandez and Olivia Goldman. Robert is a postdoctoral scientist at Columbia University, and Olivia is a fourth-year graduate student at Rockefeller University. Cientifico Latino is a volunteer run grassroots STEM organization dedicated to increasing the pool of underrepresented scientists by creating a platform where everyone, regardless of ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, disability, or immigration status, has equal access to opportunities and guidance to become successful STEM professionals. So, welcome, Robert and Olivia. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for having us.
Doing good. Thanks again.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you guys and learn more about Cientifico Latino. But first, I guess I want to get a sense of who you guys are. And one of our first questions here is what inspired you to pursue a career in science?
Sure. For me, it was a lot of serendipity involved. So when I started off, I didn't want to go into science because I didn't think I could go into science. So when I started off in high school, I necessarily wanted to go into business administration. Just because back then I was undocumented and I thought, let me go to Rutgers for business and let me save up some money to help support my family. Um, so when the time it came for the college applications, being a first generation student, I was unaware that college deadlines were a thing, and I missed it. And my only option was to go to community college. Uh, so when I was filling out that application, I remember it asked for a social security number, and around then, as a high school senior, I knew that I was undocumented, but I didn't know what it meant until I had to fill it out. So I remember calling my mom and I asked her, so mom, ¿cuál es mi social? Like, what is my social security number? And she was like, you don't have one. So at that point, I was like, okay, I still want to go to college. So let me just leave it blank. I submitted, they accepted me. And from then on, I went to study business administration. And luckily, my last year at community college, by chance, I took a introductory biology class where I had a really good mentor who introduced me to science. And based on her mentorship, it's kind of, I decided to transfer to York College, City University of New York, where I found my first research mentor, Dr. Simon. Like, because of that one biology class, I knew that I wanted to go into STEM. I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do. I was like, let me just figure it out along the way. But pretty much it all was because of mentors telling me, you should think about doing this summer research program. You should think about applying to this. You should think about going to this conference. And that kind of led to my career in STEM.
Very cool. What about you, Olivia?
Um, so what inspired me to go into science initially, like my first idea that I wanted to become a scientist and like specifically in neuroscience was because I used to study music and I just became really fascinated with how different sounds can evoke such different emotions in people. So if you know a little music theory, there's like a major chord and a minor chord, and they are actually the same thing but switched upside down. But obviously have like evoke a very different emotional response, one being that happy chord and one being a sad chord. So yeah, that just kind of started getting me fascinated with how our brains like interpret and respond to external stimuli. And then through college, I did some research and I got really interested actually specifically in tools used to study animal behavior. I actually applied to graduate school in my senior year of college, but then I was rejected. So then I worked as a research assistant. And I felt like actually throughout my, throughout applying, I had a lot of discouragement, a lot of people saying, you shouldn't go to graduate school, you shouldn't go to graduate school. Like, are you sure you really want to do this? Like, are you sure like you're really a good fit for this? But I was like, I kind of persisted in a sense that I was like, yeah, I know I want to do this. Like, I'm not really sure why people keep giving me this negative stuff, but because of that, I kind of had a circuitous route. You know, I like at one point I was like applying to data science positions. At one point, I thought I was going to do music professionally. At one point, I was really interested in virtual reality. I worked as a science journalist in freelance for a little while, all before coming to graduate school. So, you know, it's been fun. But yeah, I still think, you know, science gave me like the framework that I use to approach different problems and things like that. So right now I'm still pursuing it. Yeah.
Awesome. I always love hearing the more personal stories behind how people get into their careers, whether it be in research or various aspects of science. And I think it really does color our motivations in some of these outreach opportunities that we're going to talk about in regards to Cientifico Latino. And so, if you guys want to describe what was the inspiration for Cientifico Latino and how did it start?
Sure thing. So originally, so I did my PhD at Yale University, specifically in the molecular biophysics and biochemistry department. So a little bit of background as to how it started. I remember my first year of grad school, I faced a lot of difficulties in the sense of imposter syndrome, not doing well academically my first year of classes, not knowing what fellowships to apply to, pretty much struggling from a basic biology major at your college to this rigorous biochemistry PhD program. And it kind of felt like I was trying to figure things out on my own a lot. And I I didn't understand why, like, what are all of these resources at a great institution like Yale to prepare you for higher education. So around so pretty much like my first year, you know, I did poorly academically. I did better my second year, and my third year is when I started working on mentorship initiatives at Yale to give back to the community. But it wasn't until my fourth year where I wanted to help pretty much make access to all these open STEM resources, but it wasn't something that I could do alone. So I remember when it was starting off, it was kind of like a list of fellowships and scholarships, and I reached out to a couple of colleagues within the this fellowship, the Pollination Soros Fellowship, and within some of my colleagues at Yale, and then finally reached out to Olivia. And it was upon reaching out to Olivia where like Cientifico Latino, one, got its name, but two, it kind of just ignited. And like we kind of like working together, we knew what direction it would take that to. And with that part, I'll leave it to Olivia.
Yeah, no, I think actually, yeah. So like I've known Rob for, I guess, like almost 8 years or 9 years now, and you know, like I was familiar with his story, and and I always thought like just it's just really not right the way like different people from different backgrounds have to go through more obstacles to do something like in the scientific establishment, which I feel like on the surface level, you know, says it's for everybody, says anybody can do this, you know, supposed to be merit based, and it's really not the case. So, and you know, I have other friends that have gone through similar obstacles and struggles, and I'm all about like open access things. So the first like idea that that you know Rob said was, he was like, oh, I want to just make like this fellowship database that, and we just like put it online. And I had experience you know, like running some websites and working with some publication things. And so I was like, yeah, you know, this is definitely doable. We can definitely do this. And yeah, and then so we've just been like growing it piecemeal, and we more people have come and they've contributed all these amazing ideas, and yeah, it's just been a lot of fun. And I think the best part is that I feel like the effect we can have is pretty tangible, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. So one of the questions here says, for you guys, how would you describe some of the barriers that you've kind of alluded to already that underrepresented students face in academia?
Mhm. So, it's like a lot. So where to start? So I would say one, no role models. So at least growing up, I never knew that there were any Latinx science role models that I could look up to. Now through Twitter, there's like a lot of scientific role models that we can look up to. But growing up, no one taught me about the contributions of, let's say, Latin American scientists or those in the U.S. that are helping STEM society. Like there are Nobel laureates who are from Latin American countries, and I haven't been taught any of those things in primary education or secondary education. So it's pretty much, it's like if you don't see yourself in this, if you don't see someone who looks like you in the STEM field, what makes you think you can get there? So the first thing is no role models, and another thing is uh, financial responsibility, where some first generation and immigrant families, especially the mindset is that I need to get a job to support my family. And doing a PhD might not be the best investment because I'm going to be working 5 to 6 years at a steady income where I could be doing another job to support my family. But I like to think of it as a long-term investment, the PhD. But also it's, and I'll let Olivia focus more on this, it's just like the hidden curriculum of grad school. Like I had like knowing what I know now, like there's so many different barriers on applying to grad school that you are not taught. And they vary so much depending on different STEM fields.
Yeah, just to go off on what Rob was talking about. Yeah, I feel like barriers that underrepresented scientists face is like particularly like, information and investment by mentors, and then also like this like cultural gap, which I think is in part due to information. So when I applied to graduate school in college versus when I applied a couple of years later, I was applying from a small liberal arts college, and I didn't really understand like what like in interviews, like what PIs and things were expecting from me. And that when I applied a second time, um, I was surprised to figure out like how superficial the things that they were looking for were. Like, and it's a lot of these like external signifiers of like, oh, what makes you what signals to other people that you're like a good scientist or that you'll be a good graduate student. Like I felt like I was the same person between when I applied the first time and got rejected everywhere, and the second time and got accepted into a couple schools. And I think it's really just like uh, you know, it's really just like, oh, like, like sort of having an honest conversation about like, this is the way, this is what they're looking for. Like, this is how you present yourself as that. And I feel like in academia and in graduate school admissions committees, like they see people that like they call it like that are not a good fit, but like could be brilliant scientists, but they just like are they're just like figuring this out as they go along, and or like maybe didn't have mentors that invested in their success the same way, and it's just kind of frustrating, like this lack of accessibility.
Yeah, you guys both touched upon so many important points that even in my work in the sphere of graduate student advocacy, I've definitely come across the same themes. And going back to this theme of, lack of role models or mentorship. So I know Cientifico Latino has this graduate student mentorship initiative, or GSMI.
Mhm.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about what that is and why there is a need for GSMI?
Sure. As Olivia mentioned, there's a lot of hidden curriculums of applying to grad school. How exactly do you prepare a strong application? Who do you have that can write you a strong letter of recommendations? The importance of GREs, if any, nowadays, and GPAs. There are some PhD programs where you have to contact professors way ahead of the deadline. And if you don't, it's very unlikely you'll get in. But how do you know that if you haven't been through that process, or if you haven't had a mentor who's been through that process? So with GSMI, in short, what we offer is one-on-one mentorship with a STEM professional, whether a grad student, a postdoc, or a faculty. And through this one-on-one mentorship, they receive guidance on their personal statements, their CV. We have access to webinars on different topics and applying to grad school and fellowships, mock interviews, a community of our applicants. So that's pretty much what we offer. In terms of its importance, I guess Olivia can talk about how the impact it had that first year.
Yeah, no, so the impact that I think we had like 77 students, or maybe like, I don't know, we had about somewhere around that ballpark of students last year, and we had like a good number of them get accepted into graduate programs. So I think it shows that, how much this like sort of informal, like, hidden curriculum, as Rob mentioned, is really like preventing students from getting into graduate school. So the main component of GSMI is just this like informal buddy system, like with someone in their field, or like even that has the same background as them,
Mhm.
that like reads their personal statement and can be like, okay, I totally get where you're coming from, but you can't say it like this because this is what PIs are gonna, how they're gonna interpret that, or like things like that. And or like, these make sure you write the PIs beforehand, or make sure you don't send the same email to like 7 PIs in the same department, things like that, because it's just easy to make those mistakes if you're not already really integrated into the academic system and the academic culture. And so that like, and then we offer a lot of other resources too. We've like this year we've expanded to have much more resources. So things like, we try to have as many sample personal statements for graduate school in different fields as we can. And we do as much as we can to also support our mentors, so they're not overwhelmed in some cases, and to also provide a community where people can just exchange information. So those are our primary, those are the things we primarily do in GSMI.
And then just to add to that, something that our GSMI team, pretty much scientists throughout the US and beyond, that has helped us with GSMI, beyond helping running all of GSMI, because it's definitely not something that Olivia and I can do on our own. But also, we were able to get fee waivers to a lot of universities for students applying to certain PhD programs. And I think roughly at least 20 universities we've received fee waivers for. And that's something that we're hoping to expand, just because if an application costs roughly $100, and if you're applying to at least 10 schools, it's $1,000, not taking into account sending in your transcript or your GRE scores or your TOEFL scores. So we're hoping we can help with that financial aspect of applying to grad school as well.
Wow. No, that's awesome. I think it's really powerful to have mentorship programs, or Olivia, you mentioned there's a buddy system, right? Where you can kind of have someone to ask questions, or someone who's been through this to guide you, especially when it's that first step of even connecting with someone who has been through this that can be hard. So I think that is so powerful to have something like GSMI. And we had a question in the chat that asks, how much emphasis do grad schools place on college transcripts? If you guys want to take a stab at that.
Yeah, this is a question we get a lot, actually, and I think it can really vary. So the graduate application package is sort of it's, your transcripts, your GRE scores if you take the GRE and if you submit them, also your research experience and your recommendation letters. So it's like, graduate school, applying to graduate school, having done it twice, it's kind of like a game. You have to weigh your strengths and weaknesses, and you do as much as you can to highlight your strengths. So the two primary things that are most important are letter of recommendations. I think that's the single most important thing in a graduate school application, and it's the one you have least control over. And then research experience, and then personal statement. So it's definitely possible to get into a good graduate program with a low GPA from college. But you just have to make sure that you stand out in those other categories as best as you can.
Exactly. As Olivia mentioned, GPA is only one small factor of the entire application. Research experience is what's really key. And I even this year, I've been personally helping some of my former students with their grad school applications. And some of my students have roughly, there was one who had like a below 3.0 GPA, who has still have gotten interviews at really good PhD programs. And I'm really happy that professors nowadays are seeing that GPA is not an important factor. It's how well can you talk about your research, the amount of research experience. And I'm hoping with the GRE exit, the GPA exit next.
Yeah, and this kind of leads into this next question that says more broadly, what advice would you like to share with underrepresented scientists in terms of preparing their graduate school applications?
Sure. So I would say it's never too late to apply. And start getting ready. So I would say if you're interested in applying in the fall 2021 by the December 21st deadline for some PhD programs, it really helps you get started over the summer. So start working on your personal statements, and pretty much the first draft is don't worry about it being perfect, kind of like compile all of your research experiences, talk about your interest in STEM, your contributions to your research experiences, whether you've went on to publish any papers, present at conferences, what you learned from every research experience. And in addition to the personal statement, start reaching out to professors as well. Networking is very key in these grad school applications. Even try to stand out on social media. I know some of my former students were found on social media by some of their committees. So it's like you definitely have to go the extra mile, and definitely just be prepared with the requirements. See if they really care about a GRE or not, or the TOEFL. I know that way you don't have to invest so much money in applying to the GRE. But in short, do not be afraid to ask for help, just because this whole thing is just like a hidden curriculum. And definitely either go to our website for all of our resources, or pretty much go on like Twitter and look at the academic community that we have there to see how can you best prepare for these programs.
Yeah, I would agree. I think communication is really key. Like networking, reaching out to people, reaching out to graduate students and labs you're interested in. Even if you've had research experience, like definitely tell the people in your lab that you're thinking about applying to graduate school. Sit down with them, get their advice on what was their process like in applying. What would they have done differently? Did they like the school that they ended up at? Reach out and try to connect with people as much as possible, and don't be discouraged if people don't respond.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's see. I want to maybe shift gears a little bit, and we've talked a lot about what kind of outreach efforts Cientifico Latino has been doing. But another one of these questions that we have here says, what are practical steps that institutions can take to better support underrepresented scientists?
Sure. So I would say that it would be great if institutions can, because they're claiming that they're very big on diversity and inclusion. So why not show that financially? Sometimes a lot of underrepresented students, they are involved with all of these DEI diversity initiatives or committees, and they're doing a lot of free labor. Labor that they're expected to not just be a researcher, but also be a student, and then help solve the diversity issues at your university. in addition to doing their own science or community mentorship outreach. So why not pay students for the work that they're doing if they're improving the climate of the department? Why not give them awards for the work they're doing? Why not just, beyond emphasizing academic accomplishments, emphasize accomplishments on your science outreach work? And also fund programs that are groups that help support underrepresented communities. For example, there are some SACNAS chapters at the university level, even for graduate students. I know, at least in my case at Yale, there was a student who started YBDIC. And in short, this is a graduate student run organization that helps empower underrepresented students in science to help recruit them through the Yale Biological and Biomedical Sciences PhD program. And they're doing all of the student led. So it's kind of like support your underrepresented scientists through different avenues.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that. I also just wanted to add that I think the biggest way an institution can support, diversity in the sciences is also by placing a big focus and a big emphasis on recruiting diverse faculty. Like, I feel like there's like, like some institutions get excited about, helping like underrepresented undergraduate students, and then when you're like, oh well, your entire department is all white people, and then it's like, well, and then there's a lot of like flip-flopping and waffling. So I think it, like, to really show commitment, you have to be committed to the whole pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another topic that in previous grad chats we had always brushed upon was this idea of incentive structures and how they're not really set up to promote things like outreach or diversity, equity, inclusion. They're more for the research output, but in systems that do favor privileged groups, that really doesn't create a space for underrepresented scientists to really bloom. And so I just want to echo those points that you guys mentioned. I think one, I heard definitely compensating people for this very important outreach work, saying that one is important and that people's time is important and that it is extra labor to be experiencing this tough environment and having to advocate for yourself. So I think those are all super important points. And one of these other questions we have here says, what recommendations do you have for underrepresented students who want to get more involved in outreach?
So I guess I would say there are different outlets of doing this. So when I was at Yale, around my third year of grad school, is kind of when I decided to start a departmental mentorship program. So because I felt isolated my first year at Yale, I was the only Latinx student in my year, and maybe one out of three out of like over 60 or 90 grad students in my department. So I wanted to pretty much start a program to make sure that students don't feel isolated their first year of grad school, and they feel supported. They understand how to choose a thesis advisor, how to handle coursework and rotations, prepare for qualifying exams. So I worked with another grad student at the time, Lauren Budenholzer, and we started this mentorship program where we helped first years. But beyond that, I kind of wanted to do more in terms of like finding my community. So I learned that it's okay to go outside of your department to find your people. And through exploring different departments, such as like the neuroscience, the cell biology department, is where I found other people who are underrepresented like I was, who care about these issues of solving diversity issues in higher education. How can we help each other? How can we help undergraduates at Yale? And that's kind of how I went about it. And especially with a lot of the mentoring I've done at Yale through the STARS program, which is a group for underrepresented college students who get paid to do research, but I got involved as a mentor to prepare them for grad school and med school. But in short, it's kind of like find your own community through different aspects of the different university system.
Yeah, just to add on to that about scientific research, scientific outreach, I think might be my personal opinion, but I find I have some misgivings about getting involved in scientific outreach at your home institution. I think, particularly if you're doing you know, uh, like any sort of activism related work that's going to end up with you fighting against your institution and the administration of your school. I find that really frustrating. I do both. I'm involved in the include the Rockefeller Inclusive Science Initiative, and also with Cientifico Latino. And I just find in terms of resources, being involved with sort of outreach or diversity and inclusion work at your institution, definitely there are more resources than Cientifico Latino has, but I find I just always had I never really liked that institutions tend to just take credit for all the work that happens underneath their umbrella, and they fund it, so there's certain merit to doing that, but I just found that for me personally, being involved in work outside of my institution has just been more rewarding and independent and things like that.
Yeah, I totally agree with Olivia. Like if there's something not established, let's say in your department, or if you don't want to, like, let's say doing a lot of science outreach work for your department or be part of these committees that they just talk and they don't do anything, just start your own thing or find people like you and then start your own initiative.
I also feel that so hard. I think when I first started out, for me, it was more mental health advocacy. And I think the first step is reaching out to your institution, what resources are available. But I also ran into the similar types of vibes where if it's people just wanting to use you for your work so they can say their department is doing these things, it's not really genuine,
Exactly.
right? And that's also kind of exhausting to be in, where you are passionately pursuing something but the department isn't giving the vibe that it's because they fully, honestly fully care about the issue. And I also want to give a shout out to finding communities like, for example, PhD Balance, who is hosting these grad chats and is outside of my institution, and finding other people who are truly passionate about these issues. And you can really feel it in your interactions with them, in the events that come about. I think that's a great point in looking for communities where you do feel that people are genuinely pushing for positive change, right? And sometimes when you're in institutions, that is kind of, I don't know, iffy. And
Yeah.
so, oh yeah, go ahead, Olivia.
No, I just wanted to, I wanted to just double back because being involved in the Rockefeller Inclusive Science Initiative has been amazing, and the people in that group are amazing. Definitely, the students want to do genuine stuff. It's just the relationship with the institution that, at least in that particular instance, it's just the sort of lackluster, okay, yeah, we support you, kind of, but yeah.
I can say the same about you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There are always great people everywhere, but there are also all kinds of dynamics everywhere, and you just got to find your community that works, and recognize great people, but also recognize some dynamics that could be a little bit better. All right, as we're wrapping up our time for this grad chat, but if you guys want to explain maybe what are the next steps for Cientifico Latino, and anything else that you just want to leave our audience with today?
Sure. So pretty much we are working on pretty much continuing our GSMI mentorship program starting in June 2021. So definitely keep an eye out for that. We will continue to making our webinars open access and expanding the type of open access resources that we can offer. Definitely, if you're ever interested in volunteering, definitely feel free to reach out to us through email. Come in a few months. We definitely are going to need the help if we're planning on growing GSMI. And with that, I just want to say thank you to our entire GSMI team and Cientifico Latino team, who has been extremely fundamental through making Cientifico Latino where it is today.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that if you're thinking about applying to graduate school, definitely check out our website and sign up for our mailing list so we can let you know when we open the GSMI for next year. And then if you're interested in connecting with us or contributing with us, like also sign up for that mailing list. Or if you have like a personal statement that we can put on the website, we're always looking for that because we want as many fields represented as possible.
All right. Awesome. It's been so great talking to you both and learning more about Cientifico Latino and your stories. I was saying before we went on here, I love these grad chats because I get to talk to so many different people and the stuff that they're working on to make science a better place. And I guess we're going to wrap up this grad chat for today. So if you're just tuning in, this is Grad Chat from PhD Balance, where we bring on all kinds of guests to talk about things beyond the academic research. We go live every Saturday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And if you did like what you see here, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notifications about when we go live. So until then, I guess we'll see everyone next time. Bye.